All right, guys, welcome to the first edition of the unofficial college football show. I'm Richie O'Leary. I'm your host, joined by my co-host, Alec Krauthamel. Quick little intro. The both of us cover several teams on the Rivals Network, whether it be football, basketball, recruiting, et cetera, et cetera. Figured we'd start this pod right before the big game on Monday night. Ohio State, Notre Dame, college football national championship. 7 and 8 seed. I don't think many people saw that coming. But Alec, well, give me some high level thoughts on this one.
This is going to be a very fascinating national championship, not just because, like you said, seven. I think it's like 7 and 8 seed. Yeah, 7 and 8 seed. The fact that Ohio State probably should have been and probably was considered a national title favorite for a lot of the season, and the fact that they stumbled against Michigan and then kind of found themselves in between that game and then the
Yeah.
start of the playoff run,
Mhm.
and then Notre Dame also stumbling against Northern Illinois, probably the worst loss that any team in the field has taken all season, maybe in the entirety of the college football playoff because it was
Mhm.
always the four-team playoff, and then rebounding and running through the gauntlet that they had as well. Very impressive. Coming off that win against Penn State, it robbed us of an all Big Ten national championship, but I think
Yes.
this is still going to be a very fascinating matchup. I mean, you got a team that's very physical at the point of attack when you're talking offensively for Notre Dame, led by Riley Leonard and Jeremiah Love on the ground. And then you're up against Ohio State, who has probably the best collection of skill position talent, offense and defense in the
Mhm.
entire country. I think this game is going to come down to how does Ohio State manage the offense, whether they kind of fall back into their shell like they did against Michigan and try to really run the ball against this physical front, especially with a banged up offensive line, or if they really embrace who they are and try to stretch the field out. I thought they did a solid job. They did a really good job of it against Tennessee and
Mhm.
uh, and Oregon. And they did a solid job of it against Texas. Obviously, when they're bracketing Jeremiah Smith, it makes it a lot more difficult. But I thought Will Howard looked good. Especially in the beginning, and then obviously that defense is the talent on that defense is unreal.
Mhm.
Jack Sawyer finally broke through and made that huge play. They have high level talent at all three levels. Really, when you're talking about like I said, Sawyer, a guy like JT Tuimoloau. Look at the linebackers. You got a guy like Cody Simon, and then the
Jersey boy.
DBs. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then the DBs. I mean, you got Caleb Downs, who might be. I mean, if he was allowed to go to the draft this year, I think he would be a top five pick.
Yeah.
His range, what he can do on the field is absolutely insane. And then you got the combination of Denzel Burke and Davis Nick-Benosin at the cornerbacks. Nick-Benosin
Jersey
can be a
boy.
little bit too grabby. Yeah, also Jersey. Can be a little bit too grabby at times. He does lead the country, and I believe penalties in the passing
Mhm.
game or something like that. But um, there really is so much talent. I think it's in position for Ohio State to win. But Notre Dame, I feel like, has been an underdog throughout this playoffs. Obviously, going up against the 2 and 3 seed as well.
Mhm.
So they're going to be an underdog here again. I think it's built for Ohio State to win, but it's just a matter of can they do it.
Yeah, Notre Dame, 2-0 in the playoffs against Big Ten teams, Indiana and Penn State, and 2-0 in the regular season against Big Ten teams in Purdue and USC. So they have, I think they're better than people are giving them credit for. I know Ohio State probably is the better roster on paper when it comes to talent wise. There's no question about it. But Notre Dame does have some really talented kids. Jeremiah Love the other day against Penn State, it's just a monster at running back, and that's a kid who, by the way, had a giant knee brace on the whole entire week of practice leading up to that game, and still managed to not only like just outperform what I thought he would do, but was also getting mauled by linebackers at Penn State. And to the one point, what was it? I think he got the ball at the, like the 1-2 yard line, and it looks like he was going to get like stopped completely, and just kept pushing and pushing and pushing and got in the end zone. Absolutely insane. He also said before the game against Penn State that he wasn't going to do any leaping of any kind. He's going to take his time. Proceeds to leap in like the third quarter, and it's like, okay, never mind, doesn't matter. He looks healthy to me. It's amazing what a cortisone shot can do to you. But yeah, no, I don't know. They don't have the most potent pass game in the world. Riley Leonard's more of a runner. Ran for I think damn near 1,000 yards this season.
Yeah, he's at
Um,
866, I believe.
yeah, so I mean, he's had a couple games where he's really went off, and if they can't really, if Jack Sawyer and the rest of that defensive line can't get to can't get to Leonard, I think there's a chance he could kind of just be a little bit deadly with his legs and expose this Ohio State defense a bit. Because if you can get to that second level, maybe even that third level, we know Cody Simon, like you mentioned, really good linebacker, really good sideline to sideline guy. if you can get him to miss, I think that secondary can get exposed in the run game a little bit. Um, Either way, I think it's going to be back and forth. This is a really interesting matchup because it almost feels like Ryan Day's coaching for his job at this point. It sounds so weird to say that, but like, and I get it. He's been pretty good at Ohio State. He only has a handful of losses, but when you lose to Michigan every year, that's the determining factor of the season for Ohio State. Now you lose this game, that might put them over the edge. And we know the Chicago Bears are showing interest in him too. So is it possible he leaves? Probably not. If he wins, maybe, to be honest with you. If he loses, I think they might just outright can him, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's very tough to think that a coach could be playing for his job in the national championship. But I
Yeah.
mean, that's kind of where it's at now, where they have all this talent. They've put together such a stacked
Mm-hmm.
roster. They just haven't been able to put it all together yet. Um, and I think the most fascinating matchup is going to be the Notre Dame secondary against these Ohio State skill position players. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, when you look at just the pure talent that Ohio State has, you got Quinshawn Judkins and Travion Henderson in the running back room. And then obviously in the receiving game, you got Jeremiah Smith, you got Emeka Egbuka,
Dog.
you got Carnell Tate.
Dog.
And then Henderson
Dog.
is a threat out of the backfield, too, like we saw against Texas at the end of the first half. He just took that
Mm-hmm.
screen pass and found an opening and shot right through it and took it all the way for a touchdown. Um, so, and then obviously Notre Dame secondary is unbelievable as well. It feels like they always have these like really lengthy and rangy guys in the defensive backfield. I mean, even look in the NFL now, you got a guy like Kyle Hamilton for the Ravens who's blossomed into one of the best safeties in the NFL, and they held Penn State's receivers to 0 receptions in that game. All of them were either Tyler Warren or the running backs or another tight end. I forget his name. That Penn State's receptions came
Luke
from.
Reynolds. But yeah.
Yeah, and then when it came down to it, they made the big play. Granted, it was a bad decision by Aller on the last interception, but
Mm-hmm.
they made that big play. They had to have it. Probably a bad read, honestly, by Aller. He was going through his reads and then found the receiver coming in on the backside and just kind of forced it. But again, a great play. Um, I'm very interested to see how they attack this secondary, how Ohio State attacks the secondary, because they play a ton of cover one, but then you have the threat over the top with Jeremiah Smith. How they adjust to that is going to be very interesting. You got
Mm-hmm.
a guy like Xavier Watts who can kind of roam free at safety. I think he's going to be a huge X factor in this game, how he deals with that Ohio State passing game. So that's the
Yeah.
main matchup, position versus position, that I'm looking for in this game.
Yeah, Will Heller's been really good this season. I know he's had some struggles at times, but he's performed at a high level against the top level defenses, especially recently. I think although Al Golden might be able to out scheme him, I feel like there's also a chance that they can get him uncomfortable and kind of force him to throw something erratic and hopefully pick it off if you're Notre Dame. But Notre Dame has only, I'm looking now, 11 of 15 opponents under 11 of their 15 opponents to 16 or less points. Al Golden has become I shouldn't has become, he's always been really a defensive genius. I think he's going to be the X factor for Notre Dame. If they want to win this, they're going to have to force turnover, and that's going to be from Will Howard. I don't think the running backs are going to give one up. I don't think the wide receivers would even give one up, because I just feel like Jeremiah Smith, and you mentioned before, the rest of that group is just really, really talented. It's going to be on Will Howard to throw something erratic, throw something that he probably shouldn't, and take a chance and end up just getting a pick or something else, or a pick or a tipped ball. The other matchup I'm really looking at is this Ohio State offensive line versus that Notre Dame defensive line. I think that front four for Notre Dame is extremely talented. You can kind of look at just about anyone across the four people there, or four guys there, and they're just on top. They're just very, I don't want to say talented again, but like they're just a really very good group. On top of that, the Buckeyes also lost left tackle this season, just Josh Simmons, not Justin Simmons. And they'll be without. I think they're without Seth McLaughlin too. Their center, right?
Not sure. Let me check up on that. But yeah, the overarching point, yeah, it is true. This is a really talented.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they lost one of their main contributors, there's
Yeah,
still a
Riley
lot of
Mills is
talent
gone,
there.
but it's
Yeah,
still like they've been able to fill that gap very easily. It seems like they've been really good this playoffs. Like they held Indiana and Georgia to a 32% success rate in rushing. That's pretty fucking good considering those two teams were what What was Georgia, number 3 or 4? No, 5,
Georgia was 2.
2. Oh, gee, I forgot. You're right, because they ended up
Yeah.
winning a conference. But yeah, I think that unit's going to be interesting. And then there, Ohio State are running backs versus those Notre Dame linebackers. Who wins that battle? Because they have two talented backs in Ohio State versus a very talented linebacker room of Drake Bowen, Jack Kaiser, Jalen Sneed. So I don't know. There's a lot of good matchups, and I think this is going to be closer than even Vegas is saying.
Yeah. Also, Seth McLaughlin, he tore his Achilles
Yeah, so
um,
he is out. I was right.
right before the Michigan game. So, yeah.
That's what it was. Yep, forgot about that. So I mean, a lot of good matchups. Where's the spread? I can't find the spread right now for some reason. Uh, where is the spread for this one? Do you have it popped up by chance or no?
I do not. Let me pull it up.
I'm trying to pull it up, but for some reason, it's not cooperating. The sports book. Oh, here we go. Ohio State -8, total 45.5. Two talented defenses. I think Ohio State probably has the advantage on offense, but not by a whole lot. What are we kind of starting to think happens here?
Yeah, it's. I feel like it's about right because I feel like Ohio State's been able to now. Obviously, in the first two playoff games, they're able to really put up points. They put up 40 plus in each of those first two games.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I feel like Ohio State they can win this game if they put up 30. I think. I just
Oh
don't
yeah.
know if Notre Dame has the same shot ability to really go tip for tap with Ohio State. I think they can control the possession and the clock with their running game in this game
Mm-hmm.
and limit that. But if let's say Jeremiah Smith gets free for a big play, that could swing the whole thing because he's shown such a great ability to do that, and he's broken so many games open this year by doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and now, of course, the wild card is like we've been saying, is Ryan Day going to keep the same, I guess, execution and play calling that they had? Ryan Day and Chip Kelly both. Are they going to keep that same thing that they've had for the past three playoff games, or are they going to go back to what they kind of showed in much of the regular season, where it's they're going to try to out physical the opposing team, just run the ball, run the ball, run the ball.
Mm-hmm.
You do have really two really really good backs. Probably two top 15 in the country, I'd say.
Very true.
But they're at their best when Will Howard's being aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
And Will Howard is at his best when he's being aggressive too, when he
That's
doesn't have to worry about being hamstrung and not worrying about making a mistake. If you just let him rip and let him go and gunsling in this offense, I think he's a much better quarterback when you give him that confidence and ability as well.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that I feel like the 8 point spread's a little much based on how well Notre Dame has played in this playoff. But again, that's still a touchdown. So, like, let's say it could be a tie game, and a late touchdown wins it for Ohio State.
That's
That's
true.
the thing.
Actually
Um,
opened 9.5, went down
that
quite a bit.
that that I was surprised about. So it feels like a little much, but at the same time, I could see Ohio State covering with let's say like a late score or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the total seems about right to me too.
Really? So you I know you said if Ohio State scores 30, they win. They scored 30. You got to think that the over's probably hitting,
Well,
right?
yes, that's I think the benchmark. Honestly, I wouldn't even say 30. I think if they can if they score four touchdowns, I think they feel good.
Oh,
Um,
28, yeah.
Yeah, so that's how I'm feeling at least. Now I don't think they'll. I'm not saying that they're going to win like 28-17 or whatever, but I feel like that's the benchmark that they should look to get to feel really good about winning this game. So it's going to be a really interesting national championship, one that we wouldn't have seen in past years, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
with the expansion as well. So I think this is a really intriguing matchup between two teams that coming into the playoff weren't at their best.
Yeah.
Notre Dame has really rounded into form, but they started out pretty slow, and then Ohio State, obviously, the Michigan loss sent their fan base into a frenzy. Um, yeah, so this is one of the more fascinating national championships. I think it's a good finish to the first season of the 12-team playoff.
Yeah. No, I think the 12-team playoff has been awesome. I want to get to that in a sec. So you have Ohio State winning?
Yeah, I think Ohio State is going to find a way to make the big plays. I do think Will Howard's going to throw at least one pick just because that Notre
Mm-hmm.
Dame secondary is just far too talented. They have so many pieces that are playing not just they're talented, but they're playing at an all time high right now, coming off completely shutting down Penn State's wide receivers as
Yeah.
well.
True.
But I think they just get one more big play, and I think they win this game.
Yeah. I'm going to stick with you. I'm going to say Ohio State probably wins this one. But I think it's going to be closer than that 8-point spread. I think it's going to be like a
Yeah.
3-4 point game. I think it's going to come down to the wire. It's going to be one of the more exciting games we've seen all season between two powerhouses. really indifferent on what the score is going to be. I think that over is going to hit for sure. I think that 28-point mark for Ohio State's probably about right. I'll probably say like 28-24. I think it's going to be a really close game. I think Notre Dame's going to try to establish that run game early between Love, between Leonard, between their backups and everything. They have a chance to really show off Notre Dame football. And it's insane because they're getting such a huge split of this money because they're independent, so it doesn't matter.
So they get
And
the
it,
entirety of the what would be the conference's payout.
yeah, and it's going to show people like James Franklin the other day who said Notre Dame, every team should be in a conference. And I feel like they're going to try to show that it doesn't matter anymore. And there's a little bit more on the line for Marcus Freeman too, Ohio State guy, now coaching at Notre Dame against his alma mater. It means a little bit more. We know Ryan Day has choked a couple times in big games. It's not. I mean, he doesn't. Like I said, only a handful of losses, but in reality, it's usually the big games where those losses occur. You can argue whether Michigan big game or not. I guess yes because of the
I think
rivalry,
it's a
but
big game to a lot of
even
people.
down year, not downish year for Michigan, it still was a big game. But I'm going to say 28-24 Ohio State, but it's going to come down to the wire. I do think you're right on Will Howard probably throwing a pick. I'm going to even go out on a limb and say it's probably a Don Schuler, another Jersey boy, the safety for Notre Dame, that's probably going to get that pick. But this is going to be a fun game. I'm really intrigued to watch this. I think it could go the other way too, but I'm going to say right now it's Ohio State, but I think it could go either way, to be honest with you. And I forgot? I know I mentioned Ryan Day as a Chicago Bears candidate, but so is Marcus Freeman. Does Winter just get the job at this point? I mean,
Yeah,
Freeman played for
exactly.
the Bears too.
Yeah, and the thing with Notre Dame is they haven't won a big game in so long. The thing with Brian Kelly, it was always, they get close, but they're just a little bit short. And then with Marcus Freeman, it's kind of, maybe similar. I don't think they've won a New Year's Six Bowl since I could be wrong, but since the playoff was really formed
Mm-hmm.
a decade ago. Obviously, they made it a couple times and they weren't able to break through. But now Marcus Freeman, he's shown that he can win that big game. He's done it, obviously multiple times now, 3 times in the playoff this year. So yeah, it's I think it's a bit of a legacy game, like you said, for both coaches as well. To be honest, if Notre Dame wins this game, I don't think Ryan Day gets fired.
I don't
But
think so either, but
he'll it'll certainly put a bit of a damper on this season. Obviously, losing the national championship, and it's going to be a fascinating offseason because you lose Will Howard. Where do they go next? At quarterback, it would be a question there. And they gotta, I guess, spend more money on this team.
they got a talented one in Tavian St. Clair, so they should be okay, I should say. But
I
do you
don't know
really
if
want
they
to
want
start do you want to
true
start a young
freshmen
guy like that? Yeah.
because I mean both Arenal and Devin Brown are both in the portal, right?
Yes.
Well,
So
they did also get Julian Say, and I'm not sure where he stands as like a starter next year. I think they got him from Alabama in the portal last year too, so I guess he's still there. Do they get a stopgap option, or not really a stopgap, but do they get one of those guys in the portal? But especially considering the portal's like,
empty now
yeah.
for the
So I
most
don't
part.
know.
I'm sure. I mean, Ohio State can just basically do what Ohio State does, and just like just I'm gonna go reach out to that guy who's not in the portal and say, "Hey, how's it going? What's up, Will Howard? Do you want to come play at Ohio State?" Wait, what? Really? See you guys.
Yeah,
So that's basically how recruiting works for them. I want to go back to what you said about the 12-team playoff. I think it's been phenomenal. Neither of these teams would be in it in an actual playoff, and that's the crazy part. And that's what's making this fun. It's making it exciting. Now, are there some tweaks that need to happen? 100%. I don't know if you can just guarantee like a G5 like Boise State, a top 4 seed. I can't do that or justify that in any means when they go out and just completely lay an egg. But I think some of the other games have been great. Like you saw Notre Dame upset Georgia, who was a 2 seed. We saw Texas and Arizona State come down to the wire in a very controversial ending. Um, you saw Ohio State go against Oregon, a team that beat them in the regular season and absolutely mauled the shit out of them in the second round of the playoff. We saw Ohio State dominate a Tennessee team. Like there's so many interesting matchups, and I don't know if you stay at 12 because I don't know how much further you can really expand this without kind of hurting these teams because you can't play a like 30 round bracket or 30 team bracket because it's just too much on these guys, and you're extending the season from 12 games to we're looking at like 18 now. Like, so I don't really know what you do. I think 12 is probably the right number. I think the group or the Power Four champs, I can't even say Power Five anymore. I think the Power Four champs get automatic bids. I think there's got to be at least guaranteed one G5. You can't guarantee them a top four seed either. I think you have to, at the end of the day, these G5s, you have to realize they're not going to be at the level of even a 2-loss Power Four champ. Like, it's just not realistic. So maybe that's just my opinion. I don't know if you feel differently, but
Yeah, this year was also a little strange because you had Boise State break through as that, like, they were, I would say, objectively better than the ACC champion than Clemson.
that's where it's tough.
It's
Like,
weird, yeah, because I don't. It's tough to project the outlook of the ACC now, because they
very.
really didn't have a great team. Like Clemson broke through at the last minute. Maybe Miami had they not laid an egg to Syracuse late in the season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's that was
SMU,
a weird
it's
one.
okay, and they shit the
Yeah,
bed.
exactly. Like SMU and Clemson both did not really show out that well.
Mm-hmm.
Though I thought Clemson was all right against Texas, but yeah, that situation is weird because it's like the ACC and the big. It's like there's a clear, like, it's the Power Four, but there's two tiers. There's the SEC and the Big Ten, and then there's the
Mm-hmm.
ACC and the Big 12. Obviously, it's kind of clear, like looking at the rankings, that those two conferences, the Big 12 and the ACC, are are less valued than the Big Ten and SEC.
Mm-hmm.
So how that works in the future, I'm very curious to see, because then you got Arizona State, who, granted, they came out of absolutely nowhere. I mean, they won what, 3 games last year. They
Yeah,
came out of absolutely nowhere, won the
Scatterbo.
conference, and then, granted, they were, I don't remember where they were, like, they were ranked particularly, seating aside, but I
They
thought
were
they
four
played
seed.
better than, yeah, they were the
Oh, you
four
mean in
seed.
terms of AP top 25 or whatever?
Yeah, I think they were around like 14 or 15.
It's a good question actually. Let's check it out. Yeah, 10.
All right,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah, 10.
yeah, okay. So, but still, it's like the Big 12 and the ACC, they're two champions. I don't mean to hate on them, but they were
Mm-hmm.
not at the same level as Oregon, despite losing the first round in Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
It might be like power two supremacy that I'm trying to push here, but the
That's
point
what it
still
is.
stands. Like they don't have that same level of talent, and I know that the SEC undefeated in hypothetical matchups thing, it comes to mind. But still,
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm very interested to see how they value these conferences next year and then in years beyond, when it comes to the Power Two versus the other two. I couldn't think of a better term, but
That's fair.
the ACC and the Big 12, especially when they have a lot of good teams, but not really one blue chip top five team like they had this year.
Yeah. Actually, Arizona State was 10 in the AP, 12 in the college football playoff rankings, and they're the 4 seed. I can't justify stuff like that being correct, but they played competitive. I'll give them that. Yeah, I just feel like you have to switch some things up. Like Alabama was the 11 seed, but doesn't make it. Like Miami was the 13 seed, and probably could have argued they should have made it over someone, but I don't know. It's really interesting. We'll see what happens. I think the Power Four is going to be dominant in terms of playoff seedings, especially the Power Two. I think you're almost guaranteed at least 3 from each conference at the very minimum from the Big Ten and the SEC. There's 6 seeds right there. The rest, people don't want to hear it, but it's a guessing game, honestly, because you could throw an ACC school. They threw 2 in this year, or I'm sorry, 1 in this year. The Big 12, like no,
Well, they threw
who's
in one
second?
at large, and then
1 at large. That's what it was.
yeah.
It's yeah, I forgot about Clemson. So I don't know. There's so many interesting things you can do here, and then when Notre Dame makes it, it really fucks up everything. To be honest, when you throw an independent in there, it kind of ruins any type of argument about conference supremacy because they're in the championship. So who the fuck knows? Um, but between those two, Monday night 7:30, I think it is
I
7:30
think so.
ESPN. Yeah.
Although, knowing the national championships in the past, it won't end until like 11:30.
No. Is there any good halftime show? Do we know this year?
I haven't seen anything else. I'm really paid attention to who the halftime show is. I'm sure there'll be something
I mean, I know they're trying to make it like,
Super Bowl esque.
yeah, basically. Let's see if I can find it real quick before we sign off here on episode 1 of the official Rivals College Football Podcast. Yeah, I can't really find anything actually. Grammy Award-winning star Coco Jones. I don't know who the hell
Uh,
Coco Jones is.
Me neither. What kind of music?
The Spielman College Glee Club will perform "America the Beautiful." Dr. Bernice A. King will participate in the coin toss. Her father is Dr. Martin Luther King. It's Martin Luther
Oh,
King
right,
Jr.
because the
Day.
game, yeah, the game is on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. I forgot about that.
Coco Jones will perform the Star Spangled Banner. I'm sorry, will not be the halftime show. I
Oh,
lied.
okay.
Um, she 27-year-old R&B Def Jam Records. I don't know who the hell she is, to be honest. Anyone else? Where's the halftime show? Who the hell is the halftime show?
I feel like as if they had a
Oh,
halftime show for a
duh.
lot of these.
It's the marching bands.
Oh, yeah,
That
that
makes sense. It
sounds
is college football, after all.
the best damn band in the land.
That is true. So we'll have to see how they do perform on the national stage. But Mercedes-Benz Stadium, 7:30 p.m. Kickoff actually is already projected at 7:45 per this ESPN site. So stay tuned. Stay tuned for more episodes here. We're going to do more than just college football. We're going to do college recruiting, whether it be football, basketball related. I'm sure we're going to have to start talking some serious basketball because it's already almost. I shouldn't say it is midseason, and teams are starting to essentially knock themselves out of tournament contention. Teams are also pushing to try to win their conference. There's also teams going on runs now. It's interesting. It's something to follow. We'll touch on all that going forward. If you like the pod and you want to hear more college football takes, college basketball takes, college recruiting takes, hit the subscribe button down below. It's free, it's easy, it's simple, and it helps us grow our pod, helps us grow the network, and helps us just kind of produce more content, basically.
Yeah.
But for me and Alec, that's the first edition of the unofficial, official Rivals College Football Show. We need a college. Can't do college football because we're going to do college basketball too.
The name is
Um,
is in progress.
Name is to be determined, but for now, that's going to be called the College Football Show because the college football season is still going on until Monday night at around midnight. Then it'll be over. But for me and Alec, that's our first episode. Signing off.